a specific workshop, which would be much more practical, where you can exchange experience between yourselves and also to reflect on what has happened in the past year, what online activities you put on board. And now when we are really going, I mean, we could say back to normal or partly back to normal, when we start organizing the physical events, I think it's a good time to reflect indeed what activities should be kept and what learnings we have and what we still should continue online. So this will be the focus indeed of the topic of our webinar today. And as mentioned, it's communication team behind this webinar. So myself, my colleague Miia, also Petra, Josephine, and Julie, who are behind the screens. During today's workshop, you will also meet a few other colleagues from our secretariat. If you check the list of participants, which is available in the Zoom tool we are using, you can see that all colleagues from the secretariat have the abbreviation GS before their name, and you can easily contact them if you wish, and not only us, but also other participants using the same list. In on the same side, there is also a possibility to ask the questions via the chat. If you have any specific questions to us, moderators, to the speakers we will be welcoming during our workshop, do not hesitate to do that. On practical details, as in all virtual events, we would like to ask you to mute your microphones, except when you are speaking. And indeed, there will be several elements where you will be actively contributing to the content of today. So then you will be asked to unmute your microphone. But we would like to ask you to turn on your cameras. We would like to see how many people are with us, and do not hesitate to leave your cameras on, so that we all can exchange. And as this workshop is really, I mean, I would say practical, it would be nice to see the faces, not only the screens. So what else is left for us to say on practical details? The workshop will last 3 hours. We plan to finish around a little bit after the noon at 2:30. There will be several informative sessions where we will have the presentations, and also some sessions where you will be exchanging experience between yourself. The webinar is recorded, but not all. We are recording only the presentations, this plenary part. The discussion that will be practical are not recorded. So Miia, maybe we can share, you can share, as you will be interviewing and presenting the project, maybe we could share some insights on indeed what is expected from today's agenda.
Yes, we do have a pretty full agenda for today, so let's get going very soon. And do keep your cameras on, because we want to make this interactive. We had quite a few people registered, so we are a big group, but let's still try to make the most of the time we have together. After this intro, we're going to take a quick tour of the tool we'll be using today in just a few minutes. And then we have 2 different sets of project examples that will be shared today. We're first going to be talking about virtual study visits with SinCE-AFC and EU Cycle. And after that, we'll continue with some other opportunities about online trainings and virtual staff exchanges. But before we go into any of those, we have a quick poll for you, because we would like to hear some of your feelings about how the online activities are working for your project. We have a poll that we will launch right now. We want to know if you're already comfortable doing things online. Has it already become part of the way you do your project? Or are you still kind of trying to figure it out and make it work for you? Or are you already completely done with online? I hope not, because you're here today. So I hope we can still make use of this opportunity. But are you rather looking forward to going back to meeting in person and doing those face-to-face conversations, trips, and other exchanges? Do give us some input. 60% of you already voted. So we'll give you a little bit more time. But yeah, let us know how it's going for you.
Yeah, it's nice to see that our participants are actively voting, and I see that there are two dominating answers, but let's keep a secret for now. What about you, Miia? How do you feel about online activities? Are you glad we continue, or are you glad to be back in the office?
Slightly mixed feelings. I have to say that after all this time, I am kind of getting used to it. So I would like to see the online stay in one form or another, but I'm very curious to see how everyone else feels about it, and especially in the project context, because I suppose our perspective from the program side is always a little bit different from the project. So today's discussions are very interesting also for us to see how it's working on the other side.
So let's reveal then the results. I see that I think we finished to vote, and we can then see the results.
Yeah,
we see that indeed more than a half of respondents say that online activities became part of our project implementation. And 27 say that still trying to find better ways to make them work. And 20% say try, tested, but ready to go back to in-person meetings. That's also nice to see this.
I think this is a pretty interesting mix, and it promises good for today's discussions, because indeed we do have some different perspectives, and the whole point is for you to talk about those, what has worked and what hasn't, and more importantly, what should we maybe be doing in the future. From the program side, Irma, how do we see it?
Exactly. I mean, what I was just mentioning at the very beginning, it's a good moment now to reflect indeed what worked, what we need to keep, and indeed where we need to improve. We have with us our colleague, head of the project unit, Nicolas Singer. And I would like to address this question also to him, because Nicolas, on daily basis with his team, is involved in project monitoring. And I think it's a good moment to ask him what observations their team had and what was the trend. Nico, are you here with us? Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. I guess you are also glad to see so many projects online together with us, joining the first, indeed, our experiment event. It's a virtual exchange of experience workshop. It's a new format we are testing. Talking about the project activities, indeed, before in Interreg Europe, like physical activities were dominating, right? Like in the project implementation. Mm-hmm. And then there was the switch to the online activities. What were your thoughts at this moment?
Well, thanks a lot, Miia, and thanks, Irma. I'm very happy indeed to be there. Thanks for calling me Nico. Nicola was very formal at the beginning. I was wondering what happened. No, you can call me Nico. Well, I would mention mainly 3 points that we've learned in this past year and a half working with the projects. The first one is we were impressed by the capacity of the project to react and adapt to this situation, this very challenging situation. If you look back 1 year and a half ago in March, we were quite worried, to be honest, what's going to happen to this program. This program is about traveling, meeting other people, seeing places, and we were wondering how we would survive in such a context. And of course, this was imposed by the circumstances, but we realized that none of the project had a real complete cut in their exchange, in discussing with their partners. And on the contrary, very quickly, thanks to also some adaptation measures and flexibility, they were able to move a lot of their activities online. So this was, for me, one of the most striking points of the period. The second element I would mention, and it may sound a bit of a paradox, is that there were even sometimes some added value in this online work. What I mean by that, we were reading in some progress reports that thanks to these new online tools, whatever you use, Zoom, Teams, in fact, there were even more exchanges going on in the project. It allowed the project to establish almost a more permanent link between the partners. In the past, most of the partners were waiting for the study visits in the second semester where we're going to meet. They could not do that anymore. And slowly, it was so easy to use, not so difficult to plan in advance. In fact, it creates, as I said, a more permanent link among the partners. So this is also something that is very interesting when you look at exchange of experiences. And when I say that, it's not only all partners together in a virtual room, it was also that some bilateral meetings were multiplied, or a smaller group of partners were discussing certain subjects through this virtual means. What is clear, don't understand me wrong, we don't think virtual work, online work will ever replace, and I think fortunately, the physical work. It's always different to meet people face to face, to visit concretely a place, to have dinners with people. This, of course, we will never replace, and sometimes we are so fed up to be in front of our screen. But the last point I wanted to say, the conclusion for us is that, and I think it's reflected in the poll we've just done, we will never work in the same way as we used to work before the crisis. I think, and it's our case, by the way, at program level, all our committees were organized online. We realize now that we need to fully integrate these online approaches in our daily work. And I think the way we do cooperation will really or has already significantly changed thanks to this experience. So we are really looking forward to hear from the projects today, because one of the ideas for us today is to listen to you and maybe take some tips, some recommendation to be integrated or taken on board in the future program. This is what I can say.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nico, for sharing those insights. I personally also agree with you, and I think we were very lucky that our program was one of the early programs that started to work with the online tools in the very early stage. And it's true that now, even ourselves, we are reflecting even more how to change and to adapt, which is not just physical, not just online. It's indeed the mix of two, and maybe there will be even more new formats coming up. Talking about this, indeed, in our workshop today, we will be using one interesting, tool to support our exchanges, which is called Mural. So I give a floor to Miia to present the tool and also to guide you to the next steps of our interactive workshop agenda.
All right, so as said, it's going to be an active session today. So in addition to hopefully seeing you on camera and hearing your comments at some point, we also want to ask you to collect some of these inputs together on a digital whiteboard. We're using Mural for that, and we have a little test assignment for you. We're going to post a link to the tool in the chat, so you will all get access to it. Once you go in, there is a small welcome task, a little warm-up exercise. We just want you to get a chance to get comfortable with the tool. So take a look at the link in the chat, go in and find this welcome exercise. We want to know which project you represent. You go into the tool, you find one of the existing post-its or double click on the board to create a new one. You add your acronym there. You're just typing, and then you can drag your note to the field. I'm going to ask you all to join me right here as you're coming into the tool. So find one of the post-its, double click on the board to create a new one, or click directly under the question and just add it in the box. Let's see, I see some first acronyms popping up, looking very good. So just come in. Many projects. I see some colleagues here, Interreg Europe, as there should be. We are about 80 in this session, so I want to see a few more of those come up. It is a big group, so if some of you have issues accessing the tool, let us know in the chat.
In the chat, I cannot let know here. I have problems accessing the tool. This is Nineta from Finland.
Hi, Nineta. Did you click on the link? It doesn't take you to Mural? I see quite a few people have made their way in. There are 49 people in, so quite a few of you are already there. And quite a few different projects. Seems to be working well. There is another little exercise right next to it. If you have any particular expectations for today. You can also add a note of that if you already put your acronym there. So please do add those as well. And you can keep working with it. We're going to come back to this tool and you'll be using it in your group work as well. So quite a few different projects coming in. That's nice. If there are issues, we know that Nineta has access problems. It might be a browser issue, but it should be free for everyone to access directly with the link. No need to log in, no need to download anything. If you cannot access the tool, please put your project acronym in the chat in Zoom if you have access to the Zoom chat. We see that a few of you are not able to join, but you will always see on the screen what is happening. If you cannot go in directly, you can always use the chat in Zoom instead. I think it's working very nicely. You can keep adding your acronyms and your expectations, but while we do that, we are going to go to our first project speakers, because we do want to share some experiences and examples with you and show you what others have done before we give you the chance to discuss what you have done in your project. So, as we said earlier, we have two different examples for this first round to share with you. We're going to start by talking about online study visits. This is something that most of you have done by now in one form or another. We just want to share two different examples. First of them is going to come from SinCE-AFC, and Lamprini Tsoli will take us through how they've done their virtual study visits. So keep working on the board, but I will give the floor over to Lamprini now to talk about their virtual study visit experience.
Okay.
So Lamprini, please.
Good morning. Thank you for your invitation. Let me share my presentation now and start. Well, I work in the Regional Development Fund of Central Macedonia, and currently we are implementing almost 15 EU projects. We have a lot of experience in organizing and attending study visits. In our case, we wanted to organize and present a study visit as similar as possible to a study visit. The agenda had almost the same structure, but it lasted only 2 hours. When we organized study visits in our area, it lasted about 2 days, and we combined it with a project meeting. We decided to be more active and create a video of the SMEs that are identified as the good practices in our region, and have interviews on spot, photos, and commercial material of the SMEs. Also, we thought it would be a good idea when we set the agenda to the partners to ask them to prepare some questions in order the representatives of the SMEs to be ready to reply to that questions. Our event was quite successful. 40 people had registered and 40 people have attended. We have the chance to discuss, exchange knowledge and experience in the presenting themes. But we realized that it was quite possible to sometimes to have some answers from the SMEs, because maybe the representative of the SME was from another department. When we have study visits before COVID, we always had the chance to ask questions regarding funding issues, procedures, equipment, and that was not so possible to happen in our case. As I said, the initial idea was to replace the study visit with a on-spot video and interviews, but again, the plans have changed. We had the lockdown in our region, so there was a mobility restriction, and also the SMEs had been suspended. The alternative solution was to organize an online interviews with SMEs, use some spots of their company and any material that they gave to us. We realized that producing a video demands a lot of resources, people, money, and time. We had another external expertise to make the script, the montage of the video. We had to keep always the audience engaged and active, and of course we had to keep it short to be interesting. We realized that maybe we can not replace study visits with online events because of the Q&A section. that it's not possible to have the answers to the participants. It's crucial to identify that the SMEs that they are going to meet our criteria to participate in the online event. They have to be familiar with technology, they have to speak English, and be available to the Q&A section and help it to the event. Also, we know that it's very important to highlight to the SMEs that they are the key actors of these events, and they have to provide and share information to the participants. Another issue that we had to face is that we had a certain budget for this event, and instead of not have underspending for our project, we decided to prepare this video and also keep the event interesting. There are many ideas that someone can have to help, maybe send some material to the participants. And of course, before that, have the consent of the JS. It's very important to choose friendly user platforms because there are many of them and some people get confused going from one room to another, and then they just decide to leave the event. We had to switch from presentations to videos constantly during these 2 hours to keep it interesting. And as far as we know everybody, when we go to a visit, we have the chance to meet in person and exchange some business cards. But because this was not possible, and we thought it would be a nice idea to send contact details and recorded material to the interested parties. It's important last to send reminders for the event because nowadays everybody is registering in too many online events and it's very possible to forget about this. But if we had to travel, it wasn't possible to forget that we have to travel and go there. So we have to keep in mind that they have to have everybody, the speakers and the participant with us to have a successful meeting. This is a screenshot of our area when we organize study visits that last 2 days. We always combine a tour with a study visit in a good practice, and then the people are able to know our area. We have a video of our region, and we thought that would be a nice idea for everybody to know who we are, what we do, and where we are. This is a screenshot of a presentation of our stakeholder, and also this is a screenshot of the Q&A part. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Lamprini. I think this is a very nice example of one way of doing the online study visits. I would like to hear from everyone else. Maybe comment in the chat or leave your comments for later because we'll be splitting out into groups soon. But does this sound familiar? Is this how you've done your visits as well? Or is this maybe something you could try? I know, Lamprini, that you had quite a bit of kind of changes along the process. Do you think it was still a successful meeting, considering that you had to completely change your plan of, going from a physical visit to an online visit and then adapt during the process? So all in all, did it still work? Was it a good solution? Maybe unmute first, so we cannot hear you at the moment.
Okay. It was a successful.
Right, the connection seems to be slowing down. I have trouble hearing Lamprini at the moment, but yes, I see some nodding heads, so it might be the connection there.
The event of questions. If you have to organize an event online, just a project meeting or a workshop, it's okay. But for a study visit, it's supposed to be a visit and have this experience and ask as many questions you want, because stakeholders and especially SMEs have some needs that they want to cover by visiting an SME and have this exchange of experience and best practice. And we realized that each time they had too many questions that we wouldn't have ever thought that they have it about funding, about a corporation, about anything. And that was not possible to happen. And especially if you have a meeting, you don't have somebody have.
Yes. I think, Lamprini, the connection with you is cutting a little bit, but I think we got the essence of your experience. I think it's nice to hear that you can still give a lot of value or kind of pass a lot of useful information through these types of study visits, even if it is online. And I think we'll take note of these points, and I want you all to think about really how your study visits might have worked. And Lamprini, I'll thank you for now for your contributions. We'll come back to you later as well. You can continue sharing in the groups, but we do have another example as well of a different type of digital or virtual study visit experience. And we'll continue with that, and let's see what kind of reactions that might raise. Because we have Zsombor, Aradszki, and Delinke Bejczy from EU Cycle project, and they also did study visits online, but a slightly different approach from that compared to what SinCE-AFC did. So, Zsombor, I'll let you tell us more about your approach.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us, and thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here, and it is a pleasure to be able to share with you our experience on how we coped with the problem caused by the pandemic. So, as a brief introduction, we are the West Pannon team from Zsombor, Hungary. She is Delinke, the loveliest director one can ever wish.
Wow.
I'm Zsombor, Aradszki, the project manager. We are the lead partners of the EU Cycle project, which aims at improving cycling policies. So our project started in 2019, in August, and after months we met in person in Zsombor. We had a successful partner meeting. We were planning our activities for the next year. But in March, just before our first study visit, the pandemic hit Europe, and we stood there a bit cluelessly. So we didn't know what to do. Okay, we were waiting for a few months. In the meanwhile, we were proceeding with our other activities like desk research. But after a while, we had to realize that we have to move on to be able to keep our project on track. So we have to move everything online. So in June, as a pilot, we organized our first study visit on the topic of urban cycling. Yeah, we were there and we thought that let's see how this works out. And now if we look back, I think we can say that I still think that it was successful, but at the same time regarding its organization, it was kind of instinctive. So we could have done things better. We could have supported more the presenters. So yeah, during the summer break, the Interreg Europe project Scale Up published a methodology for online study visits, and we thought that it makes sense to adjust that method to our own project. So in September, during our online steering committee meeting, we decided to organize the study visits according to these 5 steps. So the first one was we compiled all the information on the good practices in our online drive that was shared, and not only with the partners, but also with the stakeholders. That included good practice sheets, websites, videos, and other related stuff to the good practice. The second was that then we organized stakeholder group meetings. In the invitation, we asked our stakeholders to check out these documents, and then we discussed the GPs during the event and collected all their questions. The third step was that these questions and additional topics emerged. Were forwarded to the organizer of the GP owner or the presenter to help and to support the preparation. The fourth step was the online workshop itself. The fifth step was that after that we created a report package that include the good practice sheets with additional information based on the results of the workshop, included the videos, the presentations, and screenshots. And as an additional step, as a final additional step, we share the final results on our YouTube channel, as well as on our website and Facebook page, as well as share these links also with the stakeholders after that. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that was the method we used. And as a takeaway, I would just like to highlight a few practical things. So the first one, as it has been already told before, that always send invitation to the stakeholder group at least 1 week, 1 day, and 1 hour before the event, because people tend to forget online events. And believe it or not, it can double the number of participants. Just a simple reminder. The second one, as you can see on the slide, that it's good to use interactive techniques like polls, but I must say that it's not good to overdo it. In the first study visit, we put all our evaluation questions in polls, and after the second good practice, the number of answers dropped significantly. So yeah, people sometimes get bored of polls. Still, it's useful. The third one is that discussing the good practices prior to the study visits cannot attract the critical mass in itself. So we always have to add additional related topics to the stakeholder group meetings. For example, when we're preparing for the study visit on regional cycling, we invited the 3 counties in our region to present the current status of their country level regional plans. When we were preparing for the study visit on intermodality, we invited the local railway company, the regional railway company, to present their ongoing and upcoming projects. Yeah. And the fourth one is that I wrote here that don't be shy to ask external event organizer to help you. You can always have problems with the internet access, the equipment, and the platform. And the last one is that always have someone who can take care of the waiting room. It's a really useful thing. So as a final thought, I have to say that I participated in several study visits in person in Interreg Europe projects. And I must say that it is hard to give a presentation with breakthrough experience. But that doesn't depend on fancy videos and fancy presentations. I think it depends on the presenters, the good practice owners, enthusiasm, commitment, and yeah, it depends on his commitment regarding the good practice. And that's what makes an online workshop and online presentation sexy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Zsombor. I think you raised a lot of interesting points there, and I hope people were taking notes, because I think the list kind of covers a lot of very practical tips, and that's also something that we are going to be discussing later on as well. There's one question in the chat for you from Maria. First of all, thanks for all the tips, but she was interested in knowing that now that you have this experience, what mix of methods would you use to ensure an interactive study visit? Like, what would you choose now if you had to do another one? What would be the main methods to ensure that it's an interactive online visit? Key methods. I don't know, Delinke or Zsombor, which one of you wants to react?
Okay, so actually we were doing it. It was very important that all the stakeholders who were there, they knew already the topics and they were a bit familiar with them. So we had the presentations, and always afterwards there were discussion, and usually there were quite good discussions. So we didn't use at that time, we didn't use murals. Sometimes we used these polls, but there were discussions, and they were quite vivid discussions. If the presentations were good, the topic were interesting, and what Zsombor mentioned, the presenter was good and could take the people with them, then there were very good discussions afterwards. I think the ones that we could have on the on-site visit, we had that one, or even better one, because there were more people involved. So it was quite interactive, and you have to keep the time limits. And it is also important, if you keep the time limits for the discussion, then the people know that, okay, now you have to talk and you have to ask, because then you will run out of time, and you can get the answers by email, but you have to be active there. Yeah.
I agree with those points as well. And there's definitely something that we can take away from that too. Just a quick question. Do we have anyone from Scale Up here with us today? Maybe raise your hand in Zoom if there is anyone, because the other nice part about this example is seeing how one project came up with a methodology, another one took it up and then started to make use of it in their project implementation. So that's a very nice aspect as well. So it really makes sense to look at what other projects are doing and pick those interesting tips and tricks, which is one of the things that we want to do today as well, help you exchange those ideas and look at what you can all kind of learn from each other. I think we'll leave it at there for now, because you'll have a chance to discuss later. Irma, should we move on with the program?
Yes, Miia. Thank you very much. First of all, it's you who found such nice stories from projects, and thank you to our projects who volunteered to share their stories. We will continue later with 2 more project examples, but now it's right. We will be moving to mural, and it's great to see that our participants. It was emphasized that a workshop or success always depends from active participants, and we can see that they were very active, trying the tool and contributing, and listed expectations. So I would like to invite together Miia, you, and that we check what do our participants expect from our today's workshop. Let's have a look what they wrote.
Indeed, you can already head back to Mural, because we'll be continuing with that tool very shortly. But you have posted quite a few comments about what you might be expecting from today's discussions. I see that you're looking to learn from one another. You're looking for some good tips, maybe some new tools, some inspiration, exchanges with other projects, which is good because all of that we have on the agenda. Irma, any specific highlights that you might have spotted?
I see the same. Learn about the formulas that are being used. So it means the best things that worked. I think we started already to dig into with the project examples. And as you mentioned, we will learn even more, I think, with the practical exchanges we will have now. I like also the other comment saying that they also want to know a little bit how to map and involve the relevant target groups and stakeholders. That's kind of specific question, and I think I hope that this will be also addressed within the small group discussions. But what I see as the main, I think it's all this wish to learn from the others.
Yeah, me too. I think that goes very well with our agenda. There's also one more point that I found interesting. There's one looking for tips for interactive events and discussing the future of these types of events in the next years, not only in the COVID context, but really how things go on from here. And all this is also what we had in mind for today, because we indeed wanted to give you a chance to exchange some of those tips and maybe some of those questions that you might still have. But we do also want to talk about the future. That's what the second part of today will be all about.
Great, but before advertising the second part, we are still staying in the first part. And now the next step for us all would be to work, to split in the groups indeed, and to work in the smaller groups and discuss between you.
All right, great. We have closed the groups. The time is up. We hope we had good discussions.
I am sure they had good discussions. Myself, as you, Miia, by the way, we did a quick tour visiting all the discussion groups and could see really nice discussions happening. So I'm now really excited to see the outcomes. But before going into the outcomes, we will have a short break till 11 o'clock so that you can stretch your legs, grab a cup of coffee or get some water. But don't leave the session because we will be meeting again at 11 o'clock to continue our workshop, to have more discussions and to hear a few more project stories. But Miia, maybe you had a look if all groups were working well and did they finalize the notes in Mural?
Well, as you can see, if you have made your way back and if you're looking at the screen, you can see that the small little group boards are filling up with comments, which is very, very nice. You see that group 1 has been very, very active. Group 2 has some good points. Let's check group 5, for example. There are also some comments. So overall, looking very good. We have plenty of ideas, What I would like to see now is those coming together. So we have this board in the middle, one area for your best tip, one tip from your group and one main challenge from your group. While we take a break, wrap up with your notes, add some remaining ideas if you didn't have time to do that during the discussion, put those on your own board and then copy or add a note with your key highlight on the selected tips area, the one that we have over here in the middle, and the challenge area, because we will look at these right after the break. So we want to see one tip, one challenge from each group. And now let's head to a little break and be back at 11 sharp.
Great. We can see that participants are now back. Our break ended up. We still have 1 hour and a half ahead of us to continue with our today's online event agenda. Before we go to another 2 presentations from the projects and another round of the group discussions, we will summarize our first discussion round. And during the coffee break, we had a chance to see what are those selected tips and challenges that ended up indeed on the 2 virtual flip charts we have jointly created. Let's have a look maybe then to Miia to that.
Yes, so it was nice to see that all of the groups came up with different ideas. Some of them, we saw the same kind of topics pop up here and there. And on the whole, I think we have a pretty nice summary of different types of tips and ideas over here. I'll just lock the board for a little while so that we can take a closer look. We won't be going through each of the groups one by one because we are quite a big group as such. We are about 80 people, well, 75 at the moment, but about 80 people. So what we will do is that I would like to ask you all to head back to Mural. The link is in the chat. We will post it there again, just in case you're lost. And we are going to quickly vote on the best tip and the most relevant challenge. We will give each of you, we will give you all 5 votes. So this is an individual vote. You might have been in groups, but this time you're voting individually. You have 5 votes in Mural, and you can use those to highlight the tips or the challenges that you see as the most relevant. How do you do that? The voting session is open and you allocate votes by clicking on the idea that you see on the board. For example, I see here a challenge about creating conditions for hybrid events, totally relevant. Clicking on it once gives 1 point to that idea. You can give all your 5 points to one idea if you see that that is the most relevant out of all of the ones we have on the board. Or you can share your votes among different ideas, depending on what you see. So this is completely up to you, how you want to divide your points, but basically by clicking around these ideas, our selected tips and the main challenges or questions, we can then collectively see which ones are the most relevant ones. And for this, keep in mind what you've discussed in the groups. Keep in mind the main expectations. People wanted to get concrete ideas. They wanted to hear about new tools or tips and tricks. See if you spot any of those there. Are there some that are super relevant for you, for your project? If you see your own idea on the board, you're very, very welcome to vote for that as well. So indeed, it's all open for voting. And we'll give you a little bit of time to scan through the list and vote. Irma, did you vote already?
Yes, Miia, that was very, very easy. I just had those 5 votes you gave to me. I clicked on the post-it. Indeed, I mean, now I'm seeing that I like one very much, and I didn't vote, so I take maybe a floor to comment it. I like very much this the tip that comes on that is posted on the red. Indeed, posted and says send a chocolate catering to people, home office peer to online event or plan a drink together. I like this idea that came out indeed from the discussions about the social element. That indeed it's nice to have something that we can share during this event. And I have an idea, I mean, taking this tip, that we could do something all together a little bit later during our event today. But you have to be patient to wait to learn what it is.
Yeah, I see that quite a few of you, there's about 20 people who already allocated all their points. So well done for you. A few people still have 1 or 2 votes, and there are some who didn't start voting yet. So if you didn't vote at all, now is maybe your last chance. We'll give you a little bit more time to pick out your highlights. So go ahead and take a look at all these. In the end, you can browse later through the other groups and see the points that were coming up in their discussions, because each of these boards are filled with ideas from those group discussions. But this is a very nice summary, and seeing that you really did talk about different aspects. There's things about using videos and there's moderators, there's things about keeping the contact, working with the good practices, so more focused on the content, not only the methodology and the approach, making sure that there's enough interaction and personal contact. So all very, very relevant. I'm very curious to see what the results of this are going to be.
And I also found that the challenges are quite well, I think, listed well. Like, I mean, the challenge to keep stakeholders involved. It's I think it's we can see that it was tackled in several discussions in this.
Yeah, and there's a very relevant question from Harry in the chat. He's asking if the voting should be only on the central boxes, or if you can go to the group boxes and vote for a better wording. I would ask you to stick to the ones in the middle, because these are the highlights collected from the groups. Even if there's a better idea or better wording of an idea in the boxes elsewhere, we don't look at those now. We look at the highlights, because these are the ones that the groups picked out for us. So let's trust the process here, and we will indeed keep all of these ideas. That's also why we're using a big common whiteboard. We'll keep all of these ideas and go through them afterwards. So we will be summarizing the results and looking at all of the ideas that were gathered. But now let's focus on the highlights. So let's stick with those boxes.
I am eager to see what is the outcome of the voting.
Yes, I'm also very, very eager. I see that the list of voters is getting shorter and shorter. There's about 30 people still kind of looking around. I will give you 1 more minute. So if you haven't voted yet, you have 1 minute to do so, because then we will take a look at the results. So the clock is ticking. Final chance to allocate your points. Otherwise, if you already voted and if you have any other comments or anything you might want to raise, put that in the Zoom chat, because we'll be continuing with our discussion right after the vote. And would be very keen to hear from you as well. How did it go in the groups? Was there something interesting, something that maybe is not reflected over here but should still be highlighted? Pop that in the chat and share it with the rest of us. 15 more seconds. and then we'll take a look at the results. And Irma, you can also then tell me if it matches your votes or not.
I will tell you. But anyway, whatever result is, I think all tips are relevant, and all the discussions we had are really relevant. Like myself, from my own experience at the Secretariat, I mean, we can see that each selected tip is relevant.
Now, the time is up. A few people didn't manage to allocate all their points, but now it's too late. I'm going to end the vote and have a look at the results. Let's see what are our favorites. Oh. The top ones. 34 votes for sending chocolate. I think we've all spent too much time online getting something tangible. Sounds like an excellent idea. Yeah, so sending a chocolate to people to their home or their office before an event, or to plan a drink together. So to have that more, let's say, informal interaction. A nice idea, yes. Second runner-up. One of the challenges, how to involve stakeholders in the exchange of experience activities.
I also saw that in the deep discussion groups related to this, there was also a language aspect that indeed it's a bit a challenge with the online meetings even more, because not all stakeholders indeed speak English, and with the local languages and online environment, it becomes even more challenging. Yeah. For the third one, I'm not surprised. Short, interesting interactions to keep people engaged. I think this is always what we need to balance between the duration of the event and indeed the interaction. So I mean, this tip really covers, I would say, two aspects: the duration and interaction.
Yeah. So we have a very clear, let's say, leaders, and then the votes start to split. For the rest, we have the same number of votes for quite a few ideas: keeping in contact, or thinking of a more dynamic approach, paying attention to your moderators. We heard earlier today that it's important to pick presenters that are engaged and enthusiastic online, but that definitely applies to moderators as well. Conditions for hybrid events is definitely one of the challenges that I think everyone is struggling with at the moment, to find the right approach for the future. Personal component, that, yes, how to really make it interactive and personal and interesting, and a lot of other ideas. So yeah, well, we do see quite kind of mixed reactions here. Too many offers. Yes, everyone is busy. I'm sure everyone has more than enough invitations in their calendar for all kinds of meetings. So plenty of challenges there. I see, Irma, one of my kind of, what I see here is that, okay, tips got quite a few points, but we see that there are still many challenges.
Yes.
Overall.
Indeed, many challenges involving stakeholders, also networking, a lot of also preparation in terms of online events. Too many indeed online offers, and how to sell your own product. That's also a big challenge, because once we are in the online indeed environment, so many things indeed are happening. And first is indeed to sell, and then also to get the attention during the time the online participants are joining to us. And some others also are saying that the first online meetings have been a big success, but a large amount of those events interest went down. And so then also to relation into the stakeholders, internet connection also appears there. It's still a very good and relevant point, because it's true. It seems that now it's kind of should be. We expect that always the connection will be good, but it's not indeed the case. And even when the connection is good, sometimes technical problems can raise.
Yeah. All right. So all in all, I would say interesting ideas. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for working hard in your groups and coming up with all these tips and suggestions, and also raising the challenges, because it shows that, you know, we're kind of all in this together, and we need to also probably find the solutions together. So now we know that doing something a bit more personalized, like sending chocolate or other things, can help. We have an idea of the main challenges. We know that we should keep things short and interesting, and I think all this sets a pretty good stage for continuing our discussion. Does anyone have any specific reactions to this? If you do, we are going to go back to Zoom, and you can raise your hand if you want to comment here. Otherwise, we will soon continue with the program. I see one question from Katrin, who's asking if there is any Twitter or Facebook feeds that we can visit and share after the workshop. There is, of course, ours, for example. We would be very happy to see you use at Interreg Europe to tag us in your posts. We will put the links. We will put the links in the chat so that you can make your way to our channels. Of course, we have been sharing the links to the project websites of the projects that have been featured today. You can go to their websites and access their channels through those. And if anyone else wants to share a specific channel or other feed to visit, pop the link in the chat for the others, and we'll all take note of that.
Miia, if there are no other questions, I think it could be a very good moment to share the social moment for our event. And for this, I mean, I think it's also a good moment to see if our participants are not sleeping and they are still with us. So now I will ask everyone to turn on their cameras and to wave, because we are making a joint picture, a joint online picture of our online event. Okay? Great. So I'm doing the same. Yes, great, Maria, great, Katrin. Oh, it's very nice. Great. Okay. I think we are fine with this exercise, and we can see that we are all moving. So Miia, now I think, and we are attentive indeed, this is the most important thing. So we can continue, I think, with our agenda. And ahead we have another two very, very, very nice presentations from the projects, right?
Indeed, we do. We are going to continue. We've looked at study visits, and we've looked at how to engage your stakeholders a little bit in the online environment. But we're going to expand a little bit and look at different types of online opportunities. We'll have two more examples, and then we'll be splitting into groups again so that you can discuss. But what we're going to discuss, you'll hear that later. First, let's go through the examples. We are going to talk about online trainings developed in e-smartec, and that we will do that with Maria Chatziathanasiou from the project, who will talk about the methodology they developed and how it has been used. Something that will be very interesting for you. If you have any questions during the presentation, we'll again hear a little bit about that and then discuss it afterwards. Post your questions in the chat. We will then continue to talk about virtual staff exchanges with Manuel San Emeterio from DEVISE project. So two slightly different approaches to making use of online for your project implementation. Let's dive into it. Maria, I will leave the floor to you and let you talk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, it's an easy first name, but a difficult last name. It's Maria Chatziathanasiou, but don't worry about it. Okay, let me share my screen. You should be able to see the presentation. Just give me a minute to switch to the presenter mode. Is it okay now?
It's perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you for this invitation. I'm happy to be here to share the experiences of e-smartec project regarding the online trainings. And basically, I'm happy to be here not only presenting the project lead partner, but also as a trainer myself. So I hope that you will find the information shared interesting, but most important, practical. So let's start with the learning objective of the online training. This was no different from what we aim in e-smartec, namely to enhance the engagement of citizens and stakeholders in sustainable urban mobility planning, specifically with the use of marketing techniques and engagement methods. So 6 hands-on trainings were delivered online, 1 in each of the 6 e-smartec regions. From the trainer's perspective, I can provide you with insights from the learning event that took place in the region of Central Macedonia in Greece. So if we look more closely, the first thing we did after defining, of course, the learning objective was to develop the learning material. We went on with the modular approach, building on the theory on marketing techniques and engagement methods, moving to specific examples from the project that have incorporated such techniques and methods in their sustainable mobility planning. And eventually we landed on the exercise where we asked participants to build the engagement strategy of a sustainable urban mobility plan. We made sure that we did our best to ensure collaboration of the learner throughout all the modules. Eventually, short polls and quizzes were used for the theoretical part, while an interactive board was necessary to allow for visual collaboration between the participants in the exercise in real time. And for that, we used free tools such as Google Jamboard or Google Slides. For the exercise, we placed the trainees into working groups, which we kept rather small in order not to create a messy situation with the interactive boards and to provide time for each participant to interact. There was one facilitator per working group who walked the learners throughout the exercise, and one note keeper actually facilitating the facilitator. In order to enable an emotionally driven learning approach, we used a case study integrating real-life characteristics related to our topic, namely the SUMP. And finally, we shared online material in advance, and this included the handbook of our project, where all the marketing techniques and methods were presented in relation to the SUMP cycle, as well as a participant's kit, allowing for a shorter and a more, let's say, snappy representation of the handbook. So how did this work in practice for the region of Central Macedonia? Well, first we planned for the working group in advance. This means that when sending out the invitation, we ran a quick questionnaire in order to understand the current knowledge of the learners on the topic and ensure that the balance of experience exists within each working group. Then we carefully allocate the roles and responsibilities to the speakers, the facilitators, the note keeper, and the technical coordinators, ensuring that no one is burdened with too many responsibilities that cannot be easily handled. One of the most significant preparation actions was the train the trainer events. We organized one at project level and one as a final, let's say, rehearsal for the training in the region of Central Macedonia, where we actually exposed the facilitator to uncomfortable conditions with the role playing of ourselves. But of course, major effort was also placed during the exercise within the working groups in order to keep the learners continuously engaged to the process. Eventually, 2 working groups were created, and here in the screenshots, you can see the Jamboard canvases, 2 of the many that were used, on which the trainees were asked to reflect directly using Post-it and notes. We cannot neglect the follow-up, as this is very important. You need, in order to summarize what has been done and then further reward the participants if you like, but also give them the opportunity to express their satisfaction over the overall learning experience. Okay, for those of you that you might want to have a slightly different taste of what we did, what's coming next is the course of our project, which has a similar content. with the online hands-on trainings. The launch event is today. I will place a post-it. I will place in the chat box the link if you want to participate. And we have also a participatory lab taking place within the EU Regions Week. I will drop the link for both events in the chat room. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. If you need to find us, here are our communication channels and our contact details, and I will be happy to answer any question you might have.
Thanks a lot, Maria, and sorry for completely butchering your last name earlier.
No,
I think this is again a very nice example of, first of all, a very well-developed methodology and seeing all the work that you put into the preparations and putting it all together. And for anyone who was asking for concrete tips or practical inspiration or information in the beginning of this session, take note of those two links that Maria just shared, because you can really go and see how this works in practice. So there were a lot of practical ideas here, but you can also see how the implementation of it works. Of course, this one was developed for the needs of the project, so focusing on a specific topic and so on. But I think there's a lot of interesting things that could work for other online collaboration as well. So Maria, maybe from your perspective, what are the key things that others could take away from this example?
Well, yeah, if I could highlight something, this could be the need to prepare yourself very well in advance. So the trainer events are really, you know, a must if you go online, because eventually we might feel comfortable under the technical content of our experience. We even might feel comfortable if we have delivered to many trainings and we feel that we are good instructors within a classroom or an office setting. But when you go online, things actually change. So you need to develop your online style as an instructor. And if you are not experienced, then it's important to ask your colleagues to facilitate you, either by directly sharing their knowledge or experience, or by, you know, having a rehearsal. And role playing is quite, it worked very well for us, because you eventually you place the facilitator on the instructor in a very discomfort situation, but at the same time at a safe environment where he or she can make the mistakes. And then when you actually go online with the event, you are much more prepared. So this would be, let's say, the basic tip and advice I would give for online trainings: to train the trainer and be well prepared in advance. It's not easy.
Yeah, definitely. We already heard earlier that it's important to train or prepare the participants, share the information in advance, send reminders, make sure that they're prepared for the tool and so on. But definitely preparations on the organizational side are an absolute must as well. Irma, any reactions from your side on this?
Yes, and indeed I have one question. I liked very much the slide where you had an overview on what methodology you applied. I mean, also detailing the steps you took. And I just wonder, I mean, this was something you did for the first time because you had to adapt. Where did you get all the inspiration? Like, and how did you know that, I mean, that you put, when you put, I mean, all those steps in practice, it would work? So yeah, maybe you could a little bit give some insights. What was the thinking, I mean, process behind, and how you managed to reach the outcome?
Yeah, okay. We do have quite an experience in training courses as an institute, but of course we had our partners, and we did have external experts supporting us very much throughout this process of adapting from physical to online. So we wouldn't eventually have made it without their valuable practical information and knowledge shared, of course. And we did, of course, have everyone supporting us not only on the technical aspects, because eventually you need a lot of people working behind the cameras and behind the microphones. So this is another tip I would choose to highlight. You can do this on your own, and it's not the role of the note keeper or the role of the technical coordinator. It's actually equally important to the role of the facilitator and the instructor. So yeah, we did have quite a very good team.
Yeah, team is indeed is the core. This we know also from our own experience. And maybe just to say a comment that from our own events, we have sometimes the feeling that sometimes, I mean, it really depends on the event. Facilitators in the groups and note keepers and whatnot. In this event, we started not to have, for example, you were in the groups and you had them on your own. It's also a bit a test from our side, but we noticed that when we have this specific role, then others don't take, I mean, a role to write the notes or to moderate. When we want that, I mean, all partners in the group would be rather equal than someone leading. But I guess it really depends on the on what you want to achieve as the whole from the specific group discussion.
And maybe to give a very practical example, again, I do agree that the team and the kind of work behind the scenes is very important. And for example, for today's session, we have our entire communication team involved. So even though you see me and Irma here on camera, we do have the rest of our team, Petra, Josephine, and Julie working behind the scenes as well. And we have the colleagues from our other teams. You saw Nico comment earlier, but we have our finance officers and project officers with us as well. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat to post those, and they'll keep an eye on it. And I want to lift up a comment from our finance team. They just wanted to remind all of you that when it comes to the costs in online events, the accepted ones include the catering for people, the online software and such. But what is not accepted is the postal fees, for example, gifts or sending other things to participants. And in any case, once you work on your events or activities, if there are any doubts or if you hesitate about any of the costs, please do check with your finance officers in advance as you're planning your event. So a little practical note there.
Yes.
I don't see any other immediate questions. If anyone wants to react to anything we've heard so far, please do raise your hand or post that in the chat. Otherwise, we will move on because we have one more experience that we want to share with you. And as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be about virtual staff exchange. So I'm going to ask Jose Manuel to join us. He's there. Yes, perfect. Thank you. And let's talk about what DEVISE did to, well, make the online events a little bit more interesting, different. Let's see.
At least different. Thank you, Miia. Thank you, Miia, and everybody for letting us share in this experience. Yeah, so basically, maybe if you go to the next slide, because probably, yeah, gives is a more visual one. Yeah, we would like to share with you what happened for the last staff exchange that we had in the DEVISE project. That was the one supposed to be taking place physically in Laval, in Pays de la Loire in France. And of course, due to the pandemic, we weren't able to do it. But we were very lucky actually of having that partner, because if you don't know, Laval has a pole of excellence of virtual reality tools. So actually they host every year the Laval Virtual, that is the biggest fair in virtual reality in Europe. Due to the pandemic, that virtual Laval last year, 2020, was the first time that was done completely virtually using the Laval virtual platform. So when we were deciding if we could have the staff exchange in France or not, and which format we could have, we took advantage of this platform thanks to our partner Laval Mayenne Technopole. And we said, okay, why don't we try this? Because that staff exchange happened September 2020. And then at that time, we were a little bit tired already of online meetings, because since March, everything was online meetings. So we said, okay, why don't we try? And then we went, and I think it was a really good experience. Of course, a lot of learning and a learning curve. But basically, is what you see in the slide is that you are immersed in a virtual environment. Of course, what you are seeing here is the 2D version, 2D dimension, because apart from a couple of partners that were wearing their virtual reality glasses, the rest of us, we were using the desktop application. But in any case, it makes a difference, because you will see next the possibilities that this has. What you see in the screen is the real people that were attending. You see my name there, other people there. You choose your own avatar. That I think is good also, because it's funny and you can put yourself as you wish. And this is a real presentation that was made in this case by our partner in Laval. And this is the room where we were having the staff exchange, and you can move. Maybe if you go to the next slide. Yeah, this is the end of the staff exchange, where we were also. This is a picture taken from the system, a virtual reality picture. And again, of course, you see the 2D version. But if you are having virtual reality equipment, you go immersed. You can walk in your room, and then you will be going closer to the other person. If you are using your computer, what you can do is to use the arrows, and then you can be moving across the room. So these are a couple of screenshots, real screenshots from the staff exchange. If you go to next, please. How it works. These are additional one about possibilities, because we thought that maybe it was interesting for the ones attending here to know about some of the possibilities that this type of platforms offer. So what you can basically have is that you can organize an event where you have your meeting rooms, as you see there. You have the common areas where, see, for example, this is my colleague Maisa walking through the rooms, and where you can have parallel sessions, and you can go into your own rooms. The system works that if you are close to the person that you are talking to, is you only hear each other. I mean, people can be in the platform, and if there is some distance, you don't hear what the other ones are talking if they are a little bit away from you. So you are only, you can have personal conversations, one-to-one conversations, and without interfering with others. So I think that is also a nice feature that the system allows to you. If you go to next, because maybe, yeah, just for having a flavor about what is this possible. So also you can configure your rooms. If you see there is a sort of meeting room, boardroom. But if you need to have, if you want to have a workshop with different configurations with the round tables, you can also have it. And again, since the system allows to have this sound mute if you are away from the others, you can have this for example, in the configuration below, you can have the workshop and having parallel tables discussing on the particular topic. So I think it's also a nice feature that you can use. Of course, what you see there is also the presentations can be put on the screens, and you can also tailor-made the room with logos or whatever. Go to next, please. Yeah, this is what I was explaining. Yeah, you can have your conversations there with the people that is close to you. Maybe we go for the final one where I want to share some tips or some takeaways. So one important thing is that this was the first time that we were using this platform. So we realized that, I mean, you have to invest time in making the participants ready for this new environment. We got some preparation, but there were some things that could be done better. I have to be honest on this, because one of the things, for example, that there were people that maybe was not familiar with the platform, and then you were in the middle of a presentation and somebody was walking in front of you. But well, it also added a sort of funny component. But I mean, what I mean is that you did some preparation for the people to be familiar with this tool. I think it's a good alternative, or this was also not. I think the partners we agreed that this was a good alternative to have a sort of break from the new online meetings routine, because it was something completely different. And one important thing is that it allows to have more focused meetings, because you get the experience you have is that the person that is talking to you is looking at you. It's not like how we are now with a screen with a lot of people here, but since you have this movement sense, you are looking to the person that is talking to you or to the person that is presenting, so keeps people more focused in the meeting. If you are thinking about this type of alternative to replace some physical meetings, of course you save time. I mean, you saw the possibilities of having this configuration of meeting rooms, parallel meeting rooms, and probably a lot of you know how much time it takes to organize this physically. So of course you save time, but I don't want to say that this replaces the physical meetings. I think it doesn't replace. There is a particular part that is not being replaceable by this type of alternative. And the other takeaway, or the final one, is that if you have the possibility to have virtual reality gear, of course the full immersion is even funnier, because you can walk and you can go close to the person. And again, we thought that this is what we wanted to share here with you today. And I thought it was an interesting alternative to test, and probably provide some opportunities for this new scenario we have now after the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jose Manuel. I think this was very interesting, and Janneke already replied in the chat as well that she found it very interesting, completely new. One quick question before I go into any further comments is this program available for other groups? How did you get? You mentioned that you got access through the partner, but
yeah, no. In this case, this is a platform that was developed for Laval Virtual, and we were lucky because I mean, it's a software, it's a licensed software that we go through the partner. There is a possibility to purchase that, I mean, or having a subscription, because this is a software that the Laval Virtual is providing to companies, and it's a license. It's a solution that is licensed. So if you are interested, or if projects are interested, I can put you in touch with the owner of the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely something that you might want to look at. And as we just heard from the finance team, the online software is indeed one of the things that can be covered as part of the event costs, of course, within reason. So could be an interesting one to look at. I just kind of want to go back to some of the challenges that we saw earlier, because a lot of people were commenting on how we kind of lack the personal connection a little bit in the online meetings and the personal touch. Do you feel that using a tool like this, where you actually see the avatars moving around and you're able to have more kind of one-to-one discussions, does it help to add at least a little bit of the more personal feeling to the event?
At least you have the movement. I mean, of course, it's still impersonal. I think they have some advantages and some cons. It's still a little bit impersonal, but maybe on the other side, for example, it avoids some prejudice I mean, because sometimes you can choose your own avatar and you are meeting new people and they don't even know to use you for your physical aspect, if you know what I mean. But I think it's a really good point as well. I mean, so of course in the meetings with the partners, you already know the other, and it's funny how each of us we choose our own avatar. But for new meetings, I think it also adds this component that we don't produce the other because of whatever, you know, if you know what I mean. But still, of course, you are talking to an avatar, so it's a little bit, it's still a little bit impersonal. Yeah.
So definitely there are some opportunities there, but we also heard, for example, from Torbjörn, who mentioned that they've tried this in several meetings, different tools and all that, but it takes a lot of time to implement and make the meetings flow, because of course people need to learn to use the tools and kind of get accustomed with them so that you can use it. So it's not just kind of fun and games, which is definitely true.
Sorry, Miia, but I think it was the same start, or we are in the same starting point as we were with Zoom or Teams maybe 1.5 years ago. If you, I don't know, but probably all of you have experience that took time to people to get used to Zoom, and now it's the normal. So it's true that you need to prepare, but these probably are this type of tools that if you are used to it, or if you are using more and more, probably it goes smoothly. Yeah, we have issues in the meeting, but it was okay.
No, I actually want to stop here. So thanks a lot for sharing this. We do have some additional questions about the technicalities of the tool. So Jose Manuel, maybe you can take a look at it. People were asking how you can change the rooms. Torbjörn also shared another similar tool that is available. So have a look at the chat for that. But we do have one more, let's say, topic on the agenda that we want to move on to. I'll let Irma tell you what happens next. Irma.
Yes. Thank you very much for the reminder, and thank you very much to our projects for sharing their insights. It's true, our agenda is compact and it's important, and my role to keep a timing on this and to announce that now it's time for us to move to group discussions around round 2. If during our event today we already learned and heard from the projects about their experience, we already also collected a feedback from you on some good tips from your experience, and we saw that it's nice and it's also a moment now to think about the future. And to discuss what are the key guidelines for online project activities to continue in this context. When we can have online activities, we also start having physical activities. Which ideas and practices should be kept and developed in the future, or what we should not invest the time. So your task will be now, again, you will be split it into the discussions in the smaller groups, and your task will be to come up with 3 recommendations on this topic. Miia, then I leave you to guide through the mural.
Indeed. So the logic is going to be very similar to what we did earlier today. So we will again divide you into small groups. This time the groups are not going to be the same as in the first round. So you'll hopefully be there with other project partners. So you have some new ideas to share as well. But basically your main task now is to start thinking about the future. We've heard about different ideas. You've shared your experiences. We've heard some project examples. We know what the challenges are. We have some tips. We know what works. So which ones out of these are the ones that we should really keep and develop further in the future? What are the things, how can we make use of online as a part of the project implementation process in the future? Discuss this in your groups. You get again 25 minutes. Use Mural. We have new little areas for each of the groups. So like last time, pay attention to the group number, head over to your little corner of Mural and put down your notes. And we want to get at least 3 recommendations from each of the groups, how to use online as a part of project implementation in the future. If there are any questions, post those in the chat, call us for help, but we're going to send you over to the groups now. Have fun and look forward to seeing your recommendations.
This is great to see.
All right, it looks like we have at least 4 groups that have already agreed on their recommendations. There's some more stuff coming. Time is officially up.
Yeah. Okay, I think, Miia, we can continue then. Welcome back, everyone, again to our plenary room. Again, we are all together in one room, and we can look together into the topics or insights that were a part of the discussions. Miia, anything you noticed?
Well, I noticed that the groups overall were busy, and there's a lot of different ideas coming, but also a lot of similarities. I noticed some calls for maybe additional support, some extra help, a lot of wishes for a mixed approach, bringing together some of the best parts of doing things in person and combining that with online features when relevant. Anything striking for you, Irma?
For me, I mean, I could see that everyone thinks that future is hybrid. This is one. And then I could see that also all groups, which now appears on the joint flip chart, says that, I mean, to be the hybrid, you need to find the proper tools, the right tools indeed. You need a good people. It means the team behind. And sometimes I could see that people are also discussing that you need to involve the expertise. And what is also important, like, I mean, that it goes beyond the tools, not to forget that a key to the success is collaboration or interaction. And this seems to be important. Then I think what I also could see a trend that that all the groups think that, I mean, that there will be much, I mean, activities that before maybe were physical ones, such as team meetings, coordination meetings, that they would probably be more, and I mean, would be kept online. And then the study visits, exchange of experience. The need for the future is to have the physical meetings in order to keep the interaction, the social element, and to ensure, I mean, the real, I mean, experience and networking. And I think several also things for us to pick up in terms of what support and guidance is maybe needed for the next edition of the program, that also our program document should maybe include more information on the guidance about the hybrid meetings and also expenditures related to this.
Yeah, at this point, we're not going to do any more voting, and we won't be going through the groups one by one. You have a very nice overview here on the board, so I just kind of want to open the floor to all of you. Does anyone want to comment on anything that they see, or anything that you would like to add, or anything that you discussed on your group that would be definitely worth sharing but didn't make it to the board? Now is the time. You can just feel free to unmute your mic and add your comments, or use the chat, of course. The chat is always available. If we don't see any specific highlights, then we have a couple of questions that we want to ask you. We were using this session as also a bit of a test to see how we can bring projects together outside of the, let's say, traditional events or our kind of in-person events and project seminars that we've done in the past. We want to hear from you how it worked. So we have a little feedback poll that we're going to launch now, and we hope that you can give us a little bit of feedback. Let us know what you thought about this session. It's mostly multiple choice questions about whether it met your expectations, what you thought about the duration, how it worked for you. But if you have any additional comments, feel free to add those in the chat. We will also stay here for a little while after we finish. We're very close to closing the session. So once we're done, you can also, of course, stay back and add any more comments, either about the session itself or about the future, because we're using your inputs to also, well, think about how to run projects from now on in the next program.
Yes, Miia, I'm very eager to get the immediate feedback of our participants about this online workshop. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of the workshop, as the Secretariat, we're always eager to test the new formats. And indeed, we are constantly also improving, adapting to the changing environment, to also your experience, your comments. So that's why your feedback is really, really well appreciated and of big value to us. In the meantime, while you are answering to those 6 very easy questions, I think it could be a good moment to remind about few upcoming events from our program side. And the first event, which is already starts next week, it's not next, in 2 weeks. It's 14th of October. We have European Week of Regions and Cities, and our program will be present there. Miia, can you give me a few insights? What is on our agenda for European Week of Regions and Cities?
The EU Regions Week is indeed going to be a very busy week, not only for us, but I think for many of you as well. We already saw some of the project links pop up in the chat. You heard that e-smartec is running a session. I think Next to Met also shared a link to their session earlier on. And we have one page, interregeurope.eu/EU Regions Week, where we have collected all of the Interreg Europe activities happening during the week, covering both our sessions as well as all of the project activities. So take a look at that. And see, register if you haven't yet. The registration is still open. The event will be fully online. You can pick your sessions and access any of them with just a couple of clicks. We as a program will be doing 2 different sessions, one about the benefits of cooperation and how that contributes to resilience and recovery. That will be on the 13th of October. And on the 14th of October, we give you an insight into the future of not only our program, but the other pan-European programs. So we're doing a session jointly with ESPON, Interact and Urbact and us as well to talk about what the 2021-2027 programs are going to look like.
And after this, in November, we have another event on our schedule, which should be included also in your schedule if you are interested about the future program. It's a next edition of Europe Cooperates, fully online this time on the 24th and 25th of November, where we'll be sharing some insights and the achievements about the current program. Also there will be a dedicated day to provide you information about the upcoming program and also to facilitate already the first interactions between the potential project partners, potential project ideas, etc. So you can find the link to register to this event in our chat. Don't hesitate to join us online. And indeed, we are also actively planning another edition of Europe Let's Cooperate 2022, so next year, and hopefully this event will also have a physical. It will be a physical. We hope that it will be also a physical. We will be able to organize a physical event. In addition to all those program events, you also know that our policy learning platform experts are organizing various webinars, workshops, etc. All this information is on our website, so don't hesitate to check our website. And also if you subscribe to the newsletter, it's very handy because then all information arrives immediately to your email box with the latest peer reviews, upcoming webinars, and all the thematic related knowledge, so that you can immediately, let's say, check what are the newest products from the program in thematic level.
Yes, so we hope to see you in October at the EU Regions Week, as well as the EU Sustainable Energy Week. And definitely, if you haven't yet, make sure that you have the dates of 24th and 25th of November blocked in your agenda, because this Europe Let's Cooperate is going to be the occasion when we launch the next program. So that's your occasion to get info on what's coming, start thinking about future partnerships, and start thinking about how you make use of everything you've done in these projects for the future. So that's really more about the future. And now that we have been talking about the present, any final comments? You have a lot of useful links in the chat, so take a look at that before going. The chat, we will save it. We'll take a look at all the inputs there. We will save everything that you've put in Mural. We will put together a summary of all these tips and tricks and challenges and questions that we still need to solve together to make online project activities even better. But if you want to add anything, it really now is your chance to comment on any of the issues that we've discussed today, or if you want to add anything, please make use of the chat or unmute your mic. We are here to listen.
Silence.
I have a question. How much time did you take to prepare this workshop, and how many people were involved? So what are the resources I need for this workshop, or this kind of workshop?
Yeah, very good question. Very good question, actually a very practical one. Hard to say. We started planning this already in a way before the summer, because if you remember, we sent out this survey to projects asking about interest in these types of activities and collecting inputs. Based on those, we then started to work on an outline for the session, identified some of the interesting examples that came through from the survey, some things that you shared with us. So we were working on the agenda already in June, July. Then, of course, summer came in as a bit of a break, so you can't count the months all together just like that. But really, most of the practical work on the agenda and the logistics of the session, we're talking, well, days or a few weeks at max. I mean, of course, the content preparation took longer. We're talking sort of a longer time span, thinking about the type of information we want to cover, the type of information we want to collect from you. So we started with those, and then figured out the logistics based on the agenda that we had formed. So it was really content first and delivery after, and all in all, a few months, but in concrete terms, a few weeks. And we had indeed quite a big team. So this one, as we said, you've seen mostly our communication team on screen. So we are all involved in it one way or another. But of course, then we've been collecting inputs from the other teams in terms of getting their help for the questions, and also some of the content aspects. So a few days for briefings here and there, and then most of the work within our communication team, which is.
And just also to tell you that this time it's really the first time we are trying the mural.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the first time we are trying this. I mean, in this concept, and also it's I would say it's the first time we are trying Zoom breakout sessions in such a, I would say, a large scale event for 80 people. So we did, we picked the tool. I mean, we can be very open, like last week, and we did tests also last week, several tests, internal tests, to see how it works. Do we internally understand also the tasks you were doing today, to be that, first of all, we are at ease with the tool so that you could follow. And indeed, from what we can see from today, I think the experiment was good, because we can see that all of you could easily follow those instructions.
And I think this sort of goes in line with what you heard from, for example, Lamprini or Maria earlier on. It's the preparation itself is quite heavy, but a lot of it goes into figuring out what you actually want to do. And then I think it gets easier once you've done it once, because you get the practical experience of how it works, and then doing it for a second time or later on helps a lot. So, for example, with the EU cycle example, you've seen how they already built on an existing methodology, so it was maybe a little easier to get started and start applying that. So yes, a lot of it was practice-based. By the way, you see on the screen, I'm glad to see a lot of comments coming in the chat, and we'll definitely take all of those into account. So thanks a lot for sharing all your feedback. If you prefer to do it anonymously, there is a little section in Mural as well. The link will remain active, so you can go back and have a look at all the inputs that were collected today, but you can also leave feedback there. This one will be anonymous. If you don't want to do it with your name in the chat, then just pop a message in Mural and we'll take that into account as well.
Miia, do you see reaction on my screen? Yeah, you probably saw, but it disappears. Indeed, I had a clapping. I mean, I think it's also time to wrap up and to thank to all our very, very active participants. Also, not only to participants, indeed, also to the ones who were contributing to make this workshop happening, to our team. And as I see the time of the workshop, I mean, is almost over. I think those 3 hours, at least for me, were very enriching, very active, and very, very interesting. And there are several points I wrote down for myself too, and some tips to keep for the future.